In Father Teresa's Wine Cellar, we believe all oppression is intersectional. And this means our analysis of current events frequently includes discussion of difficult and explicit content. Any combination of the following topics could be included in our show: murder, rape, war, climate change, racism, sexism, violence, sexual violence, homophobic violence, heterocentrism, discrimination and abuse against individuals of nonconformist sexuality, domestic violence, child abuse, child rape, child neglect, elderly abuse, verbal abuse, police brutality, microaggressions, ableism, cyberbullying, genital mutilation, ideological extremism, and people just being total fucking assholes.
Hey y'all, it is Phoenix Calida with the Swapcast, giving you news about sex worker rights, giving you news about, pretty much everything in the sex work industry, right? Not just rights and the push for decrim, but news stories that involve sex workers, and as well as what different sex work organizations are doing as far as their activism goes, as far as their push for helping sex workers. And so all the trigger warnings for this story, there's police brutality, there is racism, there is sexual assault, and eventually death. But I wanted to go through this story because I think it's really fucking important to talk about this type of shit, you know? The thing with this story is this is about Yang Song, who was a sex worker in New York who died during a police raid. It's unclear if she fell or committed suicide, but she did fall several stories and ended up dying from her injuries. And I suppose, that really could have been either way. She could have been trying to kill herself to get away from police, or she could have been trying to evade police and fell trying to escape. But, that's what most people know about the story, right? There was a police raid and a sex worker died, falling several stories trying to get away from police. But there's more to the story, and I think it's really, really, really important to talk about this because this is the type of information that needs to be out there when it comes to how prosecutors and police behave in regards to sex workers. A lot of folks really don't know or don't understand unless they have been in the industry themselves. And so this is sort of like one of those like eye-opening stories, if you will, to be like, no, this is how it really is. And so it's, dark and depressing, but I really, truly think it's important. So I'm going to go through this. And I'm going to be reading a Twitter thread from Ron T. Kim, who is a New York lawmaker, and he is Asian and, has been tweeting about sex worker rights, particularly when it comes to migrant workers and Asian workers, just trying to get people some more rights. So I'm going to read his thread. I'm also going to go through some of the links that he shared in his thread, and we are going to talk about Yang Song. So the first tweet is, on November 25th, 2017, Yang Song died after falling from a fourth floor balcony during a targeted police raid. Her personal messages revealed that in 2016, she was raped at gunpoint by an undercover officer, and then she tried to report the incident. Following her reporting of rape and assault by an undercover officer, Yang Song's text messages also showed months of harassment by the vice squad of the NYPD, along with threats of deportation. Right? So keep in mind, right? So last year, this happened. Her death was 2017, but 2016, she's being harassed. She's raped at gunpoint. She's being threatened with being deported. And then a bunch of cops break into her house again. And that's why I said, I can't even begin to speculate if she fell trying to get away from them and was so desperate that she was willing to, risk crawling across a balcony, or she just said, fuck it, and, intentionally committed suicide because of what was happening. And it's a fucking tragedy that people are either willing to die and risk their lives to evade police like this, or that people are actually trying to die to evade police like this because this is how fucking awful police really are. So he linked theappeal.org, and I'm going to skim this article. The headline is, family Former attorney of Queenswoman who fell to her death in Weisting says she was sexually assaulted and pressured to become an informant. And of course, Melissa Gira Grant is one of the writers on this. Melissa Gira Grant has a lot of history covering sex work stories. So this article was originally posted December 15th, 2017. Yang Song fell 4 stories onto a sidewalk in Flushing, Queens on the night of November 25th. An officer with the New York City Police Department accompanied her unconscious to the New York Presbyterian Hospital, where doctors put her on a respirator. They worked for hours. The 35 units of blood they transfused did not take, given the severity of her injuries from the 30-foot fall. The NYPD later said Yang fell from an apartment building while police were attempting to arrest her for allegedly engaging in sex work. These were among the sparse details they released after Yang's death the following morning. She was 38 years old. The NYPD's Force Investigation Division, assigned to deaths in custody, would investigate. Fucking cops and white people love investigating. Hai Song, Yang's younger brother who lives in Shenyang, China, missed 2 calls from his sister around 6:45 p.m. that night, less than an hour before the fall, according to his WeChat history. Yang had been planning to travel to China to see him December 15th, and Hai was looking forward to introducing his sister to his 4-year-old son. "It feels so painful," Hai said, speaking through a translator. "I missed the last chance to talk to my sister." When they'd heard about Yang's death, Hai and his 65-year-old mother, Yumai Shi, I know, I'm fucking up these names, I fucking know. I think it's Yumai or Yumai Shi, bought plane tickets. They arrived in New York on December 5th, their first trip to the United States. Oh, that's a shitty way to have to come here for the first time. Both speak little English. They intend to plan a funeral, seek out a lawyer, and piece together the circumstances of Yang's death. Hai said, "Many things are unclear, and the police have not provided us with a fair explanation." Yang's brother and mother are haunted by details she shared with them over the phone this year. Yang described being sexually assaulted by a man who flashed a badge and a gun and claimed to be an undercover cop. Yang also told them police urged her to become a confidential informant in the fall. She said, "I hope to know the truth. We want to know whether this was retaliation from the police and if they forced her to die." That's fucking awful. Alright, so that's what's going on there. I'm just skimming down to the bottom to see if they talk more about the sexual assault. This is a very good piece about her and who she was, right? It's nice. So yeah, they talk about vice stings targeting massage parlors have exploded in recent years, primarily in Chinese immigrant neighborhoods in Queens and Brooklyn. According to a 2017 report from the Urban Institute and Legal Aid Society, arrests of Asian-identified people in New York charged with unlicensed massage and prostitution have increased by 2,700% between 2012 and 2016. Well, I guess it's a good fucking thing that police are trying to quote-unquote help sex workers and prosecutors are trying to quote-unquote help sex workers, and that's why there's been a 2,000% increase of one racial demographic being arrested for sex work. Wow. One of these things isn't like the other. Yang herself was arrested and charged with prostitution September 27th, 2 months before her death, during a vice operation in the same building. That case was open when she fell, and her next court date was December 1st. Yeah, wow. At the same time, other anxieties were brewing. Yang and her mother spoke often enough that when she didn't call for 6 days in September, she was distraught. When they did make contact, what she had learned concerned her more. She recalled a conversation, and she said, "Mom, I was harassed by police." Yang told her mother that a man claimed he was a police officer, flashed a badge, and made sexual demands. I asked whether she satisfied his demand. She said, "I didn't dare say no, he had a gun." She also told me when he got what he wanted, the police officer said, "If you report this to police, I would," and he threatened her, "and if you don't report it, I'll protect you." And this is how police behave. Hashtag good cops. Yang confided in her mother about reporting the assault to police. Yang also described the assault to attorney Mingli Chen, her immigration lawyer and informal legal consult, and told him she'd filed a complaint against the man with the NYPD. She was asked to go to the precinct to point the person out in the lineup, and she told me she was immediately able to point out the guy, but seemingly never received any follow-up. The NYPD denied the existence of a formal complaint filed by Yang. Before the fatal sting in November, she said that Yang had confided police asked her to become a confidential informant to report on other masseuses. Oh, so snitching on your own. Snitch on your own folks. All right. According to Yang, a follow-up meeting with the NYPD was scheduled for this month. They said, we can pay you, but you have to sign a contract with us. She told police, I don't want to do this. I don't want to snitch. All right. So, yeah, NYPD being shady as fuck, as cops tend to do. It's now getting back to the Twitter thread by Ron T. Kim, which is also this person's at Ron T. Kim. A few months after a few months of investigating Yang's death, despite evidence of targeted harassment, the Queens DA absolved the Vice NYPD of any wrongdoing. Hey, once again, we've investigated ourselves and found out that we didn't do shit wrong. Where have I seen this before? Oh, wait, literally fucking everywhere. Jesus Christ. All right. And so he has another link up here. This is Queens Daily Eagle. Their website is queenspublicmedia.com. So this is from June 26, 2018, and the headline says, Queens DA absolves Vice Death Squad in death of Flushing sex worker. And it is by David Brandt. And this article goes, the death of 38-year-old sex worker Yang Song during a police sting in Flushing last November incited protests and initiated an investigation by the Queens District Attorney's Office, but Song's did not result in any form... hold on. Let me just start that over. This is a long sentence and I messed up a bunch of words in it. The death of 38-year-old sex worker Yang Song during a police sting in Flushing last November incited protests and initiated an investigation by the Queens District Attorney's Office, but Song's... because they've left out the word death. Okay. But Song's death did not result in any form of misconduct by officers, according to DA Richard Brown. A report released Thursday by Brown concluded undercover New York Police Department officers did not violate protocol, engage in misconduct, or otherwise cause Song's death, because apparently coercing people, harassing people, and raping them is not violating protocol or engaging in misconduct, because you have a badge. All credible evidence in this case points to the inescapable conclusion Miss Song, in an attempt to flee from police, either accidentally fell from a fourth floor balcony or jumped, Brown said in a statement, adding that the investigation found no evidence to suggest the police department officers intentionally, recklessly, or negligently engaged in conduct that caused the death of Miss Song. Right, because who would be traumatized after being raped and harassed by police for several months? So that's their quote. They did not intentionally, recklessly, or negligently engage in conduct that caused the death of Miss Song. The report, nevertheless, however, describes many details of the NYPD's Vice Enforcement Squad sting, including the use of redacted code words and the conversation between Song and the undercover cop who entered the Flushing apartment where she worked and agreed to pay her $80 in exchange for sex. When Song asked why he did not remove his clothing, the officer repeated that she provided bad service and told her he was leaving. What the fuck? Song then asked if the man was a police officer, and he said no, and then left. Moments after the undercover officer left, other officers arrived at the apartments to arrest Song. They reached the closed apartment door and announced themselves as police. Shortly after they reached the door, Song either jumped or fell from the balcony in the back of the apartment. Brown said the officers' actions do not constitute misconduct. And again, mind you, yeah, I know, like, technically prostitution, it's a fucking misdemeanor. It's a fucking misdemeanor. It's like a couple weeks in jail and a fine. Like, they won't even change their policy. Like, it's better apparently to fucking either, it's better to drive people to fucking suicide than to just leave them smooth the fuck alone for these fucking bullshit ass misdemeanor prostitution charges. On December 17th, International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, Song's mother joined advocates for the rights of sex workers during a rally in front of the 109th Precinct in Flushing. The Sex Worker Project said Song's death was yet another horrific example of the daily violence and injustice faced by sex workers around the world. Her death highlights the undeniable harm caused by criminalization and dangerous rescue tactics employed by law enforcement that conflate sex work and human trafficking. The report states Song... this is fucking... I said trigger warning. Suffered multiple facial fractures, a fractured right femur, and a severed carotid artery due to her fall. Damn. She was transported by ambulance to New York Presbyterian Hospital, where she died the next day. The report also states Song was participating in a 5-session counseling program mandated by the Queens Human Trafficking Intervention Court, but she wasn't trafficked. Like, what the... Following a September 2017 prostitution arrest, she was set to complete the course 3 days after she died. Damn. In October 2016, Yang Song reported to the 109th precinct that a man who she agreed to give a massage to showed her a law enforcement officer's badge and raped her at gunpoint. A U.S. Marshal turned himself into police after the NYPD's police impersonation unit created a wanted poster based on surveillance footage, the report states. But the Marshal was released when Song selected a different man from the lineup. I bet you she fucking didn't. And also note that it wasn't even the NYPD police that raped her. It was a U.S. Marshal. A fucking U.S. Marshal. So yeah, they're protecting each other on every possible level. The DA and the NYPD ultimately closed the case after DNA tests found that the Marshal was not, quote, the source of the DNA in all samples taken. So somebody who engages in sex work possibly sees multiple clients a day. So there's multiple sperm samples and you're like, oh, because they're not all from the rapist, we're not going to fucking try the rapist because he's a cop and blue lives matter and murder and rape and terrorize because that's their fucking job. In a statement, Brown said Song's death was, quote, sad and tragic, but has received pushback for his characterization of sex work amid a report delving into a tragedy. He said, quote, you fucking asshole, I've always maintained prostitution is a degrading and humiliating industry. Is that why you let cops rape sex workers? Because you want them to be degraded and humiliated by being raped by cops and not being allowed to do anything about it? And he said, my office has been at the forefront in helping those trapped in the sex industry by raping them find escape through programs and assistance as an alternative to incarceration. By raping them and then threatening to deport them if they talk about it. That's how you're fucking helping? You're a fucking dick. Yeah. Then he goes on to say that, but he's not victim blaming. We cannot predict how anyone reacts to the prospect of being arrested on any charge. Our job is to enforce the law, but we do so in these instances fairly and compassionately. Really? That's fair and fucking compassionate? Literally chasing someone to their death? That's fucking fair and compassionate? Raping someone and then not even arresting the rapist? Or trying the rapist? That's fucking fair and compassionate? Alright. So, the thread from Ron T. Kim continues. The next Queens DA must explore every option to seek hashtag justice for Yang Song and the end of criminalization of poverty. And it looks like that's the end of the thread. And I'm just really fucking glad that somebody who's actually a lawmaker, somebody who's actually involved in government is taking time to say these things. Because it's like, yeah, sex workers say these things all the time. You know, journalists, depending, you know, say these things. Activists say these things. Organizers say these things. But it's like, so many sex workers are completely dismissed because people want to fucking pearl clutch because they want to say shit like the DA said, like, anyone involved in the sex industry is a victim. And it's like, you want to talk about their victims, but then you're fucking letting cops rape them. So what the fuck does that make you? You know? But yeah, I know this case is like fucking horrible and sad and traumatizing and triggering, but this is the type of shit we have to talk about when we talk about the need for decriminalization, because what? Under criminalization and even under these fucking alternative court things where you have to go take classes, she's still at fucking risk from police. Nobody was going to do anything about the fact that she was raped by a law enforcement officer, right? Nobody was going to do anything about the fact that they were threatening to deport her. She didn't become an informant. Like, as long as sex work is illegal, those problems aren't going to go away. Yeah, it's nice that, you know, they have these little whack-ass bullshit, go to court and take some classes so you don't have to go to jail. I mean, yeah, that's probably better than jail, but if you can still be harassed and raped and held up at gunpoint and threatened with deportation and forced to be a fucking snitch, that's not okay. That's not okay. And that's why we need decrim. But, you know, anyone who's listening to this probably already knows that and knows how I feel about decrim, but I just, you know, had to come up and fucking say it anyway. So that is a story that we should be following. That is the story of Yang Song and how she died, and it's a fucking tragedy, and law enforcement doesn't give a shit. So decrim is what we need. All right, on that depressing ass note, yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah. Have a good one, y'all.